Good evening. This is Pastor Bob Uzzle of the Bethel African Methodist Episcopal Church, Corsicana, Texas. This is Wednesday, July 22nd, 2020. I hope everybody's having a great day. This is my second video for this evening, and the information is taken from my book, The Durhams of Fairfield, an African American Genealogy. It's available on Amazon and other sources. I want to talk today about a man who was born 161 years ago, July 22nd, 1859. His name was Rance Durham. Rance was believed was short for ransom. Was spelled R-A-N-C-E. He was called Grandpa Rance or Uncle Rance. He was my wife Deborah's great-great-grandfather. He was the son of Alan Durham and the grandson of an African named Gobby. Alan Durham was born in Fairfield County, South Carolina. Rance Durham in DeSoto Parish, Louisiana. They spent the remainder of their lives in Freestone County near Fairfield, Texas, where the Durhams settled right after the Civil War. Grandpa Rance was, unfortunately, I don't have a picture of him. I have a picture of his son, Willie Anderson Durham, who they say looked a lot like him. And Rance has been gone a long time. He was born a slave in DeSoto Parish, Louisiana. He came with his family to Freestone County, Texas when he was about 10 years old. So he only experienced slavery as a child. He spent the rest of his life in Freestone County. He was very active in the Pine Top, which later became Union United Methodist Church, the Pine Top Masonic Lodge, which later became Rising Star Lodge. He was also active in politics and was a devoted family man. On the 2nd of January 1879, Rance Durham and Alice MacDonald were united in holy matrimony by Reverend G.W. Solomon, and to this union were born 4 children: Willie Anderson, Abner, Tesia, and Georgia. Grandpa Rance's involvement in the community made him well known enough to be elected in October 1912 as Republican District and County Chairman. In case anybody is unaware, during the period after the Civil War, most African American voters were in the Republican Party. When did that change? In the 1930s. Many were, Abraham Lincoln was a Republican. And black voters were helped by the New Deal policies during the 30s. So they left the party of Abraham Lincoln for the party of Franklin D. Roosevelt. And Rance was always involved in helping members of the black community become registered voters. He was also elected as one of the first black road commissioners in the history of Freestone County. Now, Grandpa Rance was unable to complete his formal schooling, but he did much to educate himself on his own. This made him one of the most knowledgeable persons in the county. He did all he could to help promote the education of black youth by seeking to secure books, equipment, and other supplies for the community school. He bought property near Red Lake, which he farmed. They later built a cotton gin and syrup mill on his property. He and other residents made use of these facilities. His farm became the regular meeting places for the surrounding communities. He bought land on a number of occasions. No one knows the extent of his holdings. As a farmer and businessman, he was a daring entrepreneur and employed a number of people in the various operations. His late granddaughter, Aunt Katie Mae Durham Tatum, recalled that he, having 4 children, was often known to hire people from outside the family to work for him. His son, her father, Anderson Durham, rarely did that. Well, Anderson had about 12 children. He had homegrown help, and he didn't need to hire anybody from outside the family. Grandpa Rance community spirit was seen in the donation of part of his personal property for a community park. The Rance Durham Park was the scene of many Juneteenth celebrations where baseball, barbecue, watermelon, general socializing became a long-time tradition, and many older members of Freestone County's African American community remember with fondness. He was a kind of father figure to many people of that day. He gave legal and personal advice to many. He helped members of the Pine Top community organize a burial society. This helped defray the cost of a burial at a time when most blacks were unable to obtain insurance from mainline companies. People of all ages, black and white alike, knew and respected Grandpa Rance. During his last years, he suffered severe headaches, eventually lost his eyesight. And while blindness forced him to curtail many of his activities, his wit, cheerfulness, sense of humor, and sharp mind was a lasting landmark which remained until his death. His great-granddaughter, my mother-in-law, Aldessa Bass, recalled that even after he lost his sight, he knew his land and his community well enough that he could walk all over his land and even down the road to the grocery store without getting lost. He died in Freestone County on the 6th of March, 1950, of natural causes due to age. 90 years old, 7 months, 11 days. He was buried in Pine Top Cemetery on the 12th of March 1950 by Updack Funeral Home of Palestine. The marker on his grave contains the following inscription: "He died as he lived, a Christian. While he is gone, many of his works live on and those he helped." And his wife, Grandma Alice MacDonald Durham, died on the 18th of October 1957 at the age of 97. At the time, she was suffering from senility, arterial hypertension. She was buried beside her husband at Pine Top Cemetery on the 23rd of October 1957 by Ellie Robertson Funeral Home. And there's a lot of members of the Durham family and related families, including my late father-in-law, Brother K.D. Bass. They're buried there in Pine Top Cemetery. Rance Durham was the father of Willie Anderson Durham. Willie Anderson Durham was the father of Gladys Durham, who married Reverend W. Henry. They had a daughter named Aldessa Henry, who married K.D. Bass. Their oldest child is Deborah Bass, who on February the 19th, 1977, became Deborah Uzzell. And there's other generations coming along now, from the time of Grandpa Gobby to the present. Read about it in the Durhams of Fairfield. They can be ordered online from Amazon, or if you want an autographed copy, send me a Facebook message. We'll make arrangements for that. Happy birthday, Grandpa Rance. You're gone but not forgotten. This man contributed so much during his lifetime. He was born a slave, got his freedom, overcame all the disability that former slaves had in that day and time, did so much for his church, for his lodge, for his family, for his community. A wonderful role model. I can't think of a better thing for anybody to have on their epitaph. He died as he lived, a Christian. Have a good evening.